V, where's Tawnee?
She's dead. Yes, I actually killed someone. She was searching me to look out. You don't understand. I went crazy. Like, I didn't need to do it, you know? And then I realized that's where the show someone. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so scared. You have no idea how scared I am.
According to a study conducted in 2020, couple content is still widely popular on social media. Over 70% of users interviewed had their relationship status updated on their Facebook profile, and nearly 30% had a couple photo as their profile picture. Broadcasting our love online has become a part of our lives, but just like with everything else on social media, the unfiltered version is not always as perfect as some make it seem. Tawnee Baird and Victoria Mendoza were a part of that statistic. Looking at their social media pages, you'd see a young, beautiful couple wildly in love. They were always together, posting pictures of themselves on Facebook and Instagram, enjoying life and love. However, behind closed doors, things were very different. Victoria was very jealous and controlling, and was not happy with Tawnee having other friends. It was these friends as well as family who noticed the fights between the two were becoming more and more frequent and even physical. But nobody expected the tragic twist their relationship would take in October of 2014. After a night out with some friends, they got into a heated fight in the car, and at some point, Victoria lost control. She pulled out a knife and stabbed Tawnee 46 times. By the time emergency services got there, Tawnee was long gone. But how did the couple's love story go from being Instagram perfect to a murder case? And how did Victoria, a convicted felon, end up broadcasting messages recorded from prison on TikTok? Today we're diving into a case that proves that what you see on social media may be disguising something much, much darker. Tawnee Marie Baird was born on the 17th of June 1993 in Salt Lake City, Utah. Ever since she was a child, her outgoing personality and positive attitude made her a popular kid. She had lots of friends and always had somewhere to be. Tawnee loved to sing and had a beautiful voice. Her dream was to become a singer, and with her ambitious mindset, nobody had a doubt she was going to be a great one. Just like most young girls her age, Tawnee was always on social media. She was always updating her profile and loved posting pictures with her friends, talking to them through comments and messages. She was very active on her platforms. At the age of 17, Tawnee used to hang out with some older friends. She wasn't a problematic teenager, but like many others, she would occasionally try new things. One day she was out smoking with some friends in a car when they were stopped by the police. After searching the car and finding a bag of weed, they asked Tawnee and her friends who it belonged to. Since she was still 17 and her friends were over age, Tawnee took the blame and claimed the bag was hers. Being a minor, she knew her punishment wouldn't be as severe. She was arrested for the possession of a controlled substance and sentenced to 90 days in juvie. Like we mentioned before, Tawnee wasn't used to being in trouble, so being sent to juvie was terrifying for her. She felt lonely and scared, and it was at that moment of vulnerability when she met Victoria. Victoria Ashley Mendoza was born October 2nd, 1992. She was only a few months older than Tawnee when they met at juvie, but it wasn't her first time there. In her 17 years of life, she'd had a few run-ins with the law because of her temper and personality. Victoria's life hadn't been easy. After losing her father when she was 10, she became very insecure. She was used to getting what she wanted and would do whatever it took to get it. While in juvie, she found out her mother had cancer and that things weren't looking too well, so she turned to her new friend Tawnee for support. The two bonded quickly, especially over music. Victoria liked writing lyrics, and Tony loved to sing. They started spending all their time together. Victoria felt comfort sharing her troubles with Tony, and Tony felt less lonely and afraid with Victoria. As the days went by, they became closer and closer, until they realized their friendship was evolving into something else. They were falling in love. When Tony's time at juvie was up, she left with the promise of seeing Victoria once she got out as well. When Victoria got out, Tony was there to meet her. Their love story was about to begin. As soon as they were out of juvie, Tony and Victoria would spend all their time together. Victoria's mother wasn't doing very well. Her illness was getting worse and worse, so Victoria found refuge with Tony and her family. The Bairds opened their home to Victoria from day one. She would often stay with the family for dinner, days out, weekends. This sense of normalcy gave her a break from her troubled home situation. Tony also introduced Victoria to her friends, who quickly accepted her into their group, and they all started to hang out together. Very soon, both girls' social media pages were filled with pictures of them looking happy and in love. In the eyes of any of their many friends and followers, Tony and Victoria were the perfect couple. But by now we all know that social media always shows a curated version of reality. Nobody knows what's really going on behind closed doors, and their friends had started to realize it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Victoria was starting to show clear signs of jealousy because of Tony's active social life. She wasn't happy that her girlfriend was always hanging out with her friends and having a good time. She wanted Tony all to herself. But the signs became even clearer after a few months. Victoria's mother lost her battle against cancer and passed away. This was a hard blow for Victoria. She felt more alone than ever. But she wasn't alone. Tony's family, who were already helping her out, stepped up and offered her to move in with them full-time. They saw her as a daughter at this point, and were happy to have her live with them. They even helped her find a job, bought her clothes, and were determined to get her back on her feet. Tony and Victoria were thrilled to be able to spend all their time together under the same roof, but there was one problem they kept pushing into a corner. Victoria had a large insecurity. It was no secret that Tony had boyfriends in the past. Victoria was always afraid she was going to leave her for one of them. This insecurity made her incredibly jealous, and she began to control where Tony was and who she was with. Since she was so active on social media, Tony got many comments and messages whenever she posted. These interactions would also come from male friends, and Victoria didn't like that one bit. More than once, Tony caught Victoria snooping through her phone and her laptop, checking her Facebook messages. When Tony would confront her about this inexcusable violation of her privacy, Victoria would get even angrier and accuse her of hiding something. This habit of checking Tony's personal messages continued. After one of their terrible fights, when she discovered Tony was hanging out with one of her male friends, Victoria actually walked out and disappeared for a couple of days. It turns out she had gone out to meet one of Tony's friends and had ended up spending the night with her. This hurt Tony deeply. Victoria had only cheated on her out of spite because of her irrational jealousy. Their relationship seemed to be hanging by a thread. When Victoria realized she was losing Tony, she apologized, but she did it in her own way, through a YouTube video.
Okay, so I'm really confused on where to start right now, and I have a lot of things on my mind that I want to say. First, I want to say is I'm sorry for hurting you and cheating on you with your best friend. And your best friend is a slut, and I don't like her. She's gross, and I can give a fuck less. Alright? So, this video is like an apology to you. And the girl I'm talking about is Tawnee, and I'm trying to get her back to be with me so I can keep her again and for her to give me another chance, because I'm in love with her and I love her and I want her back. And just look at all the feelings and everything we've been through when we first met each other in our program and then when we got out, besides the bullshit that I did and all the little notes that you've wrote me and all this shit that you got me, and all that shit means a lot to me, and I don't want to lose you at all. Like, I really, really, really do love you, and I'm really sorry for everything I did, because I want to be with somebody, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get her back, instead of letting her walk free and letting her go to somebody else. And I want you back a lot, and I miss you a lot. And I just want to ask you if you'll be my girlfriend again, and I love you so much.
When Tawnee saw the video, she was moved. For those of us observing the story from the outside, this move may stand out as a huge maneuver on Victoria's behalf to guilt-trip Tawnee into taking her back, because it is. It's manipulation at its finest. But Tawnee was in a vulnerable spot. She was completely manipulated. Victoria had control over Tawnee, and she knew the video would make her break down her wall and let her back in, even if it was out of pity. Displaying this kind of vulnerability in public showed Tawnee she was really sorry and would do anything to take her back. And that's exactly what happened. Tawnee forgave Victoria, and the two were back together again, posting on social media and apparently madly in love. But the biggest red flag which anticipated the terror which was coming was the moment their arguments turned physical. One time, after receiving a text message from a male friend, Tawnee was faced with Victoria's jealousy once again. Their arguments always had the same dynamic. Victoria would accuse Tawnee of wanting to sleep with those guys. Tawnee would try and defend herself, and the two would argue back and forth. However, this time, Victoria was so enraged she lost control and punched Tawnee in the face. Immediately there was blood all over the place, and in between all the blood, Tawnee's front tooth. Victoria realized what she'd done and began apologizing, but Tawnee just asked to be taken home. Her mother was greeted with her daughter's face swollen up and covered in blood, and she instantly knew what had happened. She wanted to call the police, but Tawnee begged her not to. Victoria had a record, and she was already over 18, so she would be charged as an adult and sent to prison. Despite all the arguments, the constant violation of her trust and privacy, and now the violence, Tawnee was trapped in Victoria's lies and manipulation. She decided to give Victoria another chance. She just didn't know it would be the last one. On October 17, 2014, 21-year-old Tawnee and her 22-year-old girlfriend Victoria met up with some friends at a local bar in Ogden, Utah. Tawnee was in her element. She was surrounded by her friends, talking, laughing, joking around, having some drinks. She seemed happy. And it was this happiness, this laughter, that drove Victoria up the wall. Whenever she saw Tawnee happy, especially with her male friends, all she could picture was Tawnee cheating on her with them. She hated that Tawnee had so many friends, and she hated to see her laugh and joke around with them. She hated to think anyone but her could make her happy. So just after midnight, Victoria told her it was time to leave. Tawnee didn't want to go home yet, but she also wanted to avoid a scene, so she agreed to leave with her. One of their friends joined them, and she was dropped off at home. She pointed out the two were bickering, but nothing unlike what they usually did. She saw them drive off, without realizing it was the last time she would ever see Tawnee alive. After 5 years of relationship, and after Victoria's behavior had become increasingly violent and controlling, Tawnee was putting up with it less and less, and standing up to her more. Victoria hated this because she knew they were growing apart, and she was terrified that Tawnee was going to leave her. So when they were finally alone in the car, she accused Tawnee of flirting and cheating on her with another guy. Tawnee had had enough. She parked the car and started yelling back at Victoria. The fight became more and more physical, and there, somewhere in the middle of the tension build-up, Victoria completely lost control. She pulled out a knife and stabbed Tawnee. She stabbed her so many times, she was dead within minutes. Victoria didn't know what to do. She had lost control again, but this time she'd gone way too far, and she was beginning to realize it. When she saw Tawnee wasn't moving, she moved her to the passenger side, got in behind the wheel, and drove to a nearby church parking lot. But she didn't call 911. Instead, she called a close friend.
Are you not lying? You actually killed someone.
Yes, I actually killed someone. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so scared. You have no idea how scared I am.
V, where's Tawnee?
She's dead.
Oh, fuck me.
I went crazy, like I didn't need to do it, you know? And then I realized after the show, someone...
You stabbed her, huh?
What?
Did you stab her?
Yeah.
Fuck! V!
Oh my... Listen to me. Oh my God. She was searching me the fuck out. You don't understand. V, I have to go. I have to get this...
V, where are you? V, take her to the fucking hospital! Like, what are you doing?
Dude, she already died. Like, what am I...
Where are you?
It was this friend, in fact, who managed to figure out where Victoria was and called 911. When the police arrived at the church parking lot, they found Victoria sitting in the car, clothes covered in blood. It wasn't hers, however. Tony's body, lifeless and covered in blood, was sitting beside her. Victoria was arrested on the spot and taken in for questioning, but the police already knew what happened. Victoria had told her friend over the phone. However, she seemed to only remember stabbing her a handful of times, but it was much more than that. Tony had been stabbed 46 times by Victoria. When the trial started, Tony's family were afraid she'd try to make an insanity plea. In fact, Victoria initially pleaded not guilty during her preliminary hearing and even threatened to kill herself. However, there was more than enough evidence to back up the couple's violent history, as well as the call she'd made to her friend the night of the murder. An insanity plea was off the table. Victoria knew and understood what she had done, and the consequences her actions had. She was officially charged with first-degree murder, and taking the advice of her attorney, she pleaded guilty.
I understand that they're hurt, and I'm hurt as well. I have no excuse for what I've done, you know. That's the main reason why I played guilty. I really have nothing to say. I'm the wrong, I'm the monster here, so...
The court sentenced her to 16 years to life for the murder of Tawnee Baird. For the past 5 years, Victoria Mendoza has been serving her sentence at the Utah State Prison, but her name has recently become very popular on TikTok. At the beginning of the year, Victoria managed to open an account on the platform and was posting content filmed from inside the prison. She even had over 1,000 people following her. When her account was discovered by Tony's family and friends, they alerted the prison as well as the platform. An initial investigation shone some light on how this had even been possible under the prison's supervision. During the pandemic, all in-person visits had been cancelled, and prisoners were given access to a video chat system. There were, however, rules that applied to this system. Recordings or photographs of the video calls are specifically prohibited. But Victoria's videos were popping up on TikTok, allegedly through one of her friends. This friend would record their calls, as well as record Victoria sending messages to the fans she was gathering on her account.
What's up, TikTok? So I've gotten everything that you guys are emailing to Stacy, the letters, the comments, everything. So if you guys are wondering if I'm able to read what you guys are saying, I am. I know this is kind of getting boring for you guys to just hear me talk, so we're going to try, me and Stacy are going to try to come up with something that we can do for you guys that's not so boring. Other than that, shout out to Brazil, Amsterdam, just all of the UK. I've gotten so much love from out there, so I appreciate it. And one more reminder, don't support my crime.
Because yes, Victoria Mendoza has fans, people who are infatuated by her and who admire her. This is not the first time we've seen this situation. Murderers such as Richard Ramirez or Chris Watts have been bombarded with fan mail and even found love through these admirers. However, while sending fan letters to prisoners is not illegal, Victoria's way of communicating with them was. Victoria Mendoza's account was shut down immediately, and further action is being taken by the Department of Corrections to ensure this doesn't happen again. Because just like Tony's father pointed out, he doesn't have a video phone, to contact his daughter. Thank you for joining me for another true crime story. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more stories. See you in the next one.